Implicit bias rolls on. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. Merry Christmas from the crew, and that is crew with a K. So we've had at least one weekly whiskey, and some of us might be sampling some of the weekly whiskeys that are on the bar from Mr. Lester Steakhouse, available this month. We'll talk about those in just a minute, but we have to get to some of the stories, as we talked about in the monologue, about people who maybe aren't willing to sacrifice for everybody else. Why? And what do I mean by that? And what kind of stories are we talking about? We're going to get to in just a minute. Very quickly, we're going to show you who's here in the Mr. Lester's TSPL. Quick shot at the bar. They're not going to say anything because I'm going to talk too fast. Is Rene Girard, the certified wizard of tobacco. Is he waving? Oh, dear God. Next to him is Grant Galatas, K&B, looking cool because he's sitting next to Rene, and it makes it that much easier. And then, of course, there's Caleb Morse, the rustic renegade, sitting in the chair like mine. As I said, I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. So, gents, this is a big story that at Christmas, I am just so thankful that this information's out there, because the mass media is not going to pass this story along. But guess who is? We are, and here's what's important. I sent out in the string of stories that we would cover this week, essentially what should be a national bombshell. This story should be on the front page of every single newspaper, but it's not. It should headline almost every single newscast for a week or so, but it hasn't. What's the story? The story is this. The story is about Liz Cheney. Now, if Liz Cheney's watching, I don't have to tell you the story because you know what happened. You know what you did. Liz Cheney was outed in the last week because there was an investigation into the January 6th committee. Now, Liz Cheney served as the prosecutor for the January 6th committee. And for those who don't necessarily know or understand legal procedure, it is a disbarable offense. It is almost viewed as prosecutorial misconduct for a prosecutor to have, let's say, inappropriate one-off conversations with a potential witness. Now, the witness here doesn't matter, but I'm going to tell you what the witness talked about because that's what does. This witness testified twice in front of Congress, in front of this committee, and didn't really say anything important. So they brought her back a third time. You know, you'd figure they got to ask her all the questions they wanted, maybe on the first try. No, well, maybe on the second. So they got two rounds at this, and nothing important came out. But like Doug Henning says, it's magic. On the third time, all of a sudden, she tells Congress that then sitting president Donald Trump lunged through the beast, the presidential limousine, to try and take over the wheel. That story made national headlines. Everybody should remember that one. It was a big deal. Oh, Donald Trump does this, lunges to try and grab the wheel of the beast to try and get him to go back to where he wanted to go so he could have a quote-unquote insurrection. Well, funny. Not really. Wouldn't you know it? The investigation into the January 6th committee got a hold of text messages. Anybody want to guess who Liz Cheney was talking to between the second and third time that they testified? Renee?
I would guess the witness.
Correct.
You know,
one-off inappropriate conversations with that witness, and shocker, only after talking to Liz Cheney inappropriately through off channels does this story somehow come up.
But
Merry Christmas.
But one of the things, anybody with half a brain that's ever been in a limousine, none of us have been in the Beast, but I'm sure the Beast is set up kind of like all other limousines. You have the back compartment. There is a wall between the drivers and the occupants in the back. So who the hell would think that you can lunge and grab a steering wheel? Much less Donald Trump. That man's smarter than that. He knows better than that. What? How would you think that would happen?
Renee, I'm 5'8" on a good day. I can't fit through the window on a normal limo. Let's be honest here. Donald Trump is supposed to be 6'4".
Oh, not supposed to be.
Right, he is.
He's a big man.
He's a big man physically.
And you got Secret Service agents sitting in the back. You don't think that they would, they would block that? There's no way that would happen.
But here's the bigger...
So who thought about creating that story?
So
in the beast, you wouldn't have exactly an agent. You would have an AIC, an agent in charge, right? And
Right.
They would sit there as an intermediator between the two.
But they are an agent. They've been trained. They've been through
and
all
you would
that
have
training.
the principal at the far back of the limo, so he would have to cover 4 to 6 feet to get to the AIC, to get through the ballistic window, to get there.
okay.
Yeah.
But where we are right now, and I know Grant's going to want to chime in on this, is we are missing the point of this story. The point of the story is not how dumb do you have to be to believe that story. The point of the story is how far in breaking the law is a U.S. Congresswoman at the time?
Well, she was.
Is she willing to go in order to try and get her way? She's not doing this for the American people. She's doing this for herself.
Well, she was the vice chair of the committee, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And then when you say inappropriate conversations, any conversation is inappropriate in the eyes of the law for
Without counsel.
Without counsel for a prosecutor to have with a witness or someone who's going to testify.
Well, I mean,
Any conversation is a jailable offense.
I mean, you can have depositions where the prosecutor can have conversations.
Yeah, but at that point, their
it's-
lawyer is present.
Right, exactly.
These are private. Now they did use an intermediator.
Intermediary.
Yeah, once or twice. But even then, they can't do that.
But they did also have conversations, one-off between the two of them, and agreed, obviously, to meet in person. And by the way, please,
and
don't- please
concoct this story.
please don't believe me. This story can be found on a .gov website. You can find this on a government website, which means that every single news outlet has access to all of this. So, hey, ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, why are you not reporting this? Why are you not putting this on the front page, on the headline of every newscast? Why are you not letting the American people know this?
Why doesn't Axios have it?
Yeah. You know why? Because Axios is not the news. Shocker. Caleb.
And they knew what they were doing. They knew they were doing wrong. They knew that they weren't supposed to do this, and they thought they would never get caught. And you know what's even worse? They still haven't been caught. It's out there, but no one's really saying anything yet.
Well, so Grant, do you want to chime in on this at all? Because you're just like soaking this all in. And I know how your brain works.
It's the theater of the absurd, because the people who are supposed to, we're saying, how do you not think you're going to get caught? But the people who are in charge of babysitting this sort of stuff are the same people, are in the same boat in their opinion of Trump.
So you
The
mean
people,
if
the people who are going to prosecute this, the people who are going to investigate this, are in total agreement with what these people are doing. And I think the intermediary was Farrah Griffin, who happens to be on The View now.
Yeah, shocker.
Which puts it all into perspective.
This
for
is my
me,
shock.
because the credibility of not only mainstream media, people who associate with people on The View, it's laughable. I can't even go deep into the rabbit hole with this stuff because, again, the people who are in charge of bringing these people to justice for this sort of stuff agree wholeheartedly with what they're doing.
Caleb,
They've got carte blanche to get away with this.
well, do they? And I'm gonna throw some things out there, and here's why. Hear me out. So, Joe Biden's administration. I'm not saying Joe Biden because the person, the shell of a human being that is our 46th president of the United States. I don't believe he's got the mental capacity to do what he's doing with regards to pardons right now. But one of the ideas that we have seen is we are seeing blanket pardons. And by the way, the continuing resolution that got killed the day that we are reporting and recording this episode had in it pardons for members of Congress. It had pardons for all these prosecutors. It had pardons. They were playing Oprah Winfrey giving out pardons. You get a pardon and you get a pardon and you get a pardon. And they're almost all pardons for things that no one has even been charged with yet. Which makes me wonder, so Grant, why would you pardon someone for something they haven't been charged with?
That's the absurdity of it, because why would you need a pardon unless you're guilty in the first place?
And why would you need a pardon if you're not going to be prosecuted for it?
Because someone's protecting you. They know you're guilty, and they're going to lose that protection on a certain date in January.
And maybe they know that prosecutions are coming.
Well, it's a bold admission of guilt, basically.
It is.
We're going to pardon you because we know if they start digging into this, it's going to be uncovered. It's going to be revealed to be true.
But ultimately, those pardons, I believe, aren't just pardons of the people who were acting on those things. I think there's a deeper reason to all of the pardons. Why would you pardon all those people? I mean, are you pardoning them for no reason? Or are you issuing pardons to stop them from being prosecuted and doing what? Because how does a RICO case work? Anybody know how RICO works and how they got the mafia? They pop the low-level guys. And then what do they get the low-level guys to do?
Turn on the mid-level guys.
I smell a rat.
It'll keep going up the chain.
And then the rats start eating each other.
Mm-hmm.
And when the rats learn, as an old proverb says, to eat rat, all of a sudden, the rats take care of themselves. That, in my opinion, could be why we're seeing these blanket pardons for people who haven't been charged with crimes, for people who haven't even been told, oh, you might be charged. It's like, yeah, well, we're just going to issue this pardon because...
Preemptively.
No reason.
Just in case.
Just in case we get the 1 minute finger. Tug, maybe we'll have to have a glass of weekly whiskey. Give us a little more time in the final segment for hour one. Find us on all our socials, YouTube, X, Facebook, Insta. Please follow us. It helps the show. Come back and catch the last segment of hour one because we got a doozy of a story that's tons of fun. And then we get into what's more fun, hour two of this week's episode of Implicit Bias.